Hi, I'm Catherine Llewellyn, the host of the podcast. You can find out all about Truth and Transcendence on truthandtranscendence.com. And you can find out all about me on beingspace.world, where you will find my online coaching offering as well as my UK-based workshops. The Freedom of Spirit workshop for liberation and empowerment, the Pellower Radical Shift in Consciousness workshop for spiritual expansion, and transformational coaching for exploring the mind-body-spirit connection on the expansive path. You can also support the podcast by actually making a donation. I hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to Truth and Transcendence. You can find all our other episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. Do you ever think about your legacy, what you're leaving behind? Some people start thinking about this when they're very young, some never think about it, and then suddenly on their deathbed think, I hope I've left behind something good. So your legacy, depending on how old you are, is already to some extent formed. So everything you've done, all the contributions you've made, everyone you've loved, everyone you've received love from, all of your endeavours, everything you've delivered and created, all the differences you've made, these are all part of your legacy. And so you could call a lot of this our accidental legacy, the default legacy that just happens regardless of everything else. But there's another kind of legacy that's, I believe, much more potent. And that is the legacy of the essence of your existence. And this is the thing that's a little bit more difficult to get to. You may have heard me talk about how I came to bring through a new modality, freedom of spirit, last year, 2024. And for me, this was an experience of bringing through something for my legacy that was about the essence of my existence. So in other words, it felt very, very closely aligned to one of the most important core aspects of my life, my learning in my life, and the quality of my presence in the world. So I was thinking about this morning and thinking, how did I do that? And maybe would people be interested in hearing about how that happened? And might there be other people out there who might be interested in doing something similar for themselves? When I say for themselves, I mean for themselves and everybody who comes after them. So where this all began for me was just a moment of decision, a decision point, when I realized I wanted to bring something through and parcel it up and make it accessible for whoever was interested in it. And I wanted it to be something that only I could bring through, because my particular set of experiences in life and my particular set of qualities that I happen to have within myself as a person are unique to me. So only I can bring that through. And only some people will find it attractive or interesting or want to learn about it. So how did this begin? Well, it actually began through a very strong calling that I received to actually do it. Now, receiving a calling like that is something that cannot be legislated or dictated. So either you've felt a calling like that, or perhaps you're feeling a calling like that as you listen to me, or you haven't, not yet. Or you felt one years ago and you acted on it and you've done it. So really, I'm talking to anybody who's in that place of feeling that calling to leave something behind that's more potent, more essential to who you are, more finely tuned, and more bespoke than the default legacy that you leave behind. Or even more so than the legacy we leave behind when we teach people certain skills, when we show people how to do things, even as we bring up our children. Those are vital and important and beautiful and sacred. But I'm talking about something even more intrinsic and intimately personal to you and who you are. So if you're in that place, I'm talking to you today. And if you're not in that place, if you've been in that place in the past, then I'm talking to that past you and saying, hi, listen to my version of this. Does it resonate with what you've already experienced? And if you're yet to experience it, then I'm saying to you, stay open. Maybe this is something which will come your way. Maybe you will experience such a calling. So let's say you are feeling that calling right now. Here are some of the ways that you can respond to that, if you'd like to. So the first one is just simply to sit with it and simply to reflect and contemplate the question which says, what is my intrinsic, essential, most important piece of wisdom for the world? Or some people describe it as a superpower. What is my superpower? And if you come up with something fairly superficial to begin with, then you simply dig deeper. You say, what's beneath that that's unique to me? And what's beneath that that's unique to me? And what's beneath that that's unique to me? In my particular case, I'd had a conversation with someone who's very insightful, knows me very well. And I said, what do you think is my superpower? And he said, freedom of spirit. So I said, well, that feels right to me. And I completely forgot all about it and went nowhere with it because I hadn't actually had the calling at that point in time to do something with it. So the next thing that can be great to do is to grab a piece of paper as big as possible. I chose a piece of flip chart paper. And I just started writing on this paper all of the most important learning experiences of my life. I started with my childhood, and then I moved into my adolescence, and then into my early 20s, and then mid-20s, and then 30s, and so on, and so on, and so on. And each of these decades of my life, sometimes it wasn't exactly a decade, but each of these phases of my life was a strip along the paper from left to right, and it progressed downwards across the ages. And there were so many really valuable points of learning. There were so many really exciting breakthroughs and epiphanies and discoveries. And some of these came about through hardship and basically screwing things up profoundly and learning from that. But a lot of them didn't come from that. They actually came from some really beautiful expansion experiences or some absolutely wonderful, brilliant people who showed up in my life, starting with my parents. And yes, all of those people and all of the experiences had shadows to the ups and downs. My capacity to receive and learn was extremely variable throughout the period, but I actually managed to get this all written down. I will tell you, there was a lot of resistance to this. I was quite resistant to it. I had a voice in my head saying, oh, this is all going to be nonsense, Catherine. This is a waste of time. You everything you are. And I will say to anyone who's experiencing a calling like this to create an intrinsic legacy, be prepared for the fact that resistance may come up. Because the thing about this is what you're doing is you're valuing who you are and the essence of who you are. And you're valuing your unique contribution, your unique place in the world. Now, that can feel like a dangerous thing to do. That can seem risky indeed. And our survival mechanisms, our defense mechanisms, might have a lot to argue about in regard to that. And not just to do it. So be prepared. Resistance can come up. I had a lot of resistance come up. But the calling was so strong, I couldn't let the resistance stay in charge for very long. So I did this, and I then reached a point where I was then stuck. I didn't know what to do next, and I actually hired a coach, someone I knew very well, a friend who was a brilliant coach, to do a 1-hour session with me to help me pull out of that what it was going to be that was going to take me forward. Now, in my case, I basically started going through everything and reading it all out. And she just listened and listened and listened. And she stopped me at a certain point and said, right, that's quite enough information. That's quite sufficient for what you're trying to do. And by the way, everything you've spoken about so far is about freedom. At which case, like a bolt from the blue, I suddenly remembered the conversation about superpower and suddenly remembered that freedom of spirit had been actually named. And there we were. The answer was right in front of me the whole time, but I couldn't see it. I had to go through the process. Now, some people won't have to go through that process. Some people will be able to just absolutely realize very easily and quickly exactly what their particular essence of contribution is. And that's absolutely great. So if that's the case for you, fantastic. So then I had my theme, which was freedom of spirit. And because this is a particular strength of mine, for something I'm very familiar with, I knew exactly what that meant to me and for me. And I knew exactly how that had been a guiding light for my entire life. So this is a very good point to actually recognize, okay, this thing I've come to at this point, whether you do it in the way I've just described or do it another way, does it actually feel exactly right? Does it feel exactly right? Or does it feel like it sounds good, it sounds clever, it sounds intelligent, it's accessible, people will understand it, but it's not really me? This is the other thing. This is a guiding thing in an exploration like this, which is, this is about you, and it has to be specifically about you. It can't be guided by, oh, I must come up with something everyone's going to understand, because that's a completely different objective from coming up with something that is intrinsically and essentially me and my essence and my presence and my contribution. So this is not about being polite. It's not about being coming up with good marketing copy. That will come later, if that's relevant to what your particular essence is. No, this is about keeping going until something is there that feels like a really good fit, a perfect fit. And in my case, when that came through, I had a very like a flare of positive energy fired up within my body. I could feel this feeling of excitement, rightness, alignment, everything falling into place. So having done that, what on earth do you do with that? Do you start giving talks all over the place about that? Well, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe what you then do is say, okay, so how can I unpack that more? How can I make more sense of that for myself? And how can I think about what's the most relevant way to convey this to other people? Is it through giving them information? Is it through crafting an experience for them to move through? Is it through creating art? Is it through simply how I embody my life? Is it through putting signs up in the front window of my house? What is it? Do I write a book? What is the way, or what are the ways, or at least the beginning ways, to convey this such that I'm gifting it, but in the way I'm gifting it, I'm living true to the thing I'm gifting. So in other words, I'm not, let's say with freedom of spirit, I'm not creating a prison for myself in the way I'm choosing to convey it. I'm conveying it in a way which actually fits with freedom of spirit whilst conveying freedom of spirit in a way which people can get hold of. So that can take some time. With my particular thing, took me probably about 3 months to get the initial frame of an initial thing I was going to do. And then another 4 months or so before I was ready to actually share it with people. So it takes time, and it's important to allow the amount of time of what that's going to be. But it's so fulfilling. It's such a fun thing to do once we hit on what it is. And I think most of us actually could do this if we wanted to, but most of us hold back from it, or we come up with something that's a kind of diluted version of this particular essential energy or vibration or piece of wisdom or whatever you might want to call it, that is ours and ours alone. Because I think we don't get fully the absolutely fantastic contribution it is when we do hit on the thing that is our own unique presence and contribution. We miss that. We don't believe it. We think, well, it might be true of other people, but it's not going to be true of me. But I'm here to tell you, I believe it's actually true for absolutely every single person. And we're in a very interesting time now where we're surrounded by people who are actually doing this and finding whatever their thing is and turning it into, whether it's an offering or whether it's a book or whether it's just something they talk to their friends about or they put into art or whatever it may be. And for each person who does it, whether or not it's something that I personally resonate to, the fact they're doing it is just a delight. Recently, I've come across somebody who does embodied dream work, embodied dream weaving, I think it's called. So it's all about a relationship with dreams. Now, the way that she describes it and embodies it and talks about it is just so attractive and appealing and compelling. It's gorgeous, really lovely. Now, I'm pretty confident that there's going to be a lot of people who are not going to be drawn to that. They're going to think, well, that's just nonsense. You know, dreams are just dreams and they're weird and forget about it. But there are people who are drawn to that. And for them, if they're drawn to her energy, what a gift. I know someone else who I've met recently who will help you to meet your guardian angel. Same applies. A lot of people are going to think, what on earth is that about? That's nonsense. But then there are people who are drawn to that. And for them, it's a beautiful, beautiful gift. And those are quite sort of esoteric, those two. But there are people who do this with, let's say, carpentry. Well, that's, what they're really into. Now, carpentry is not what I would call an essential legacy theme. But it could be an expression of one. It could be a manifestation of one in the physical world. So somebody with his cult du laissez, it could be something to do with physical relationship with creativity and experiencing the body, actually bringing things into form. Something around that could be their particular essential vibration that they're bringing through, possibly. In which case, that's what they've chosen as the vehicle for expressing that and bringing that through and contributing that. And again, some people will not be drawn to that and some people will. So there's plenty of people in the world who are looking for learning, looking for experiences, looking for openings, looking for something new, looking for something that supports what they've already been doing. So whatever your thing is that's unique to you, it's going to be of value to others. Maybe just your family. If you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s by now, you may have a large family. You may have 20 or 30 grandchildren or great-grandchildren, potentially. So you may have your own market at home, as it were, for what you can pass on. And when you do this, you may discover that this essential vibration or theme that you come up with is something you've already been in alignment for a really long time and that you've already been sharing and contributing. In which case, take a moment to just feel so good about that. So good. Because that is such a gift to suddenly discover that's what you've already been doing. Beautiful. Which means then you now can also be encouraging other people to connect with whatever their essential legacy contribution is going to be, as I'm doing with you here today. So the wheel turns, this goes round and round. We help each other to bring through our unique gifts. And as we bring through our unique gifts, we reach a point where we help other people to bring through theirs. And this is part of the miracle of humanity. It's part of the miracle of our consciousness and our lineage and our relating and our community. So wherever you are in this particular little journey, have a wonderful time. Know that your contribution is unique to you and is sacred and powerful and important and of great, great value. So thank you for listening and thank you for watching. Please do help with the growth of the podcast by telling people, giving a review, or anything else you feel comfortable to do. You can actually donate by going to truthandtranscendence.com/donate. That's always very welcome because this is a privately funded podcast. Have a wonderful week and I'll see you next time.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. It really helps if you give a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, a review, and share with your friends. If you're looking for transformational coaching or an intensive transformational weekend workshop experience, I can help with that. You can actually help the show by making a donation. Until next time, take care.